And welcome to another edition of the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network, WCOM in Chapel Hill. And we certainly thank all those who are watching on Big Mind Entertainment. You can watch it on YouTube and, of course, on StreamYard. I'm LA Batchelor. Thank you for being a part of this broadcast. And you could have been doing anything else you decided to check in with us. We certainly appreciate you checking in with us. If you have any questions, the chat room is open. You can hit us up with your questions and comments, even for our guests. You could do that as well. Bring in, speaking of which, bringing him in. Always good to have him on. He is a member, of course, of the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association, but specifically the Black College Sports Network, giving us these top tens and doing a phenomenal job with it. He is the one and only, a very colorful AD Drew. And AD, I appreciate you, man, as always. And I know Thanksgiving's coming up and getting ready for the turkey and all that other stuff, but certainly we appreciate you coming on, sir.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on once again. And the color for this week is green, as in FAMU is going to break that decade.
Hey, you gotta put it up. Put it up. I got my stills up. Put up that fam. Yeah, they're the Rattlers. There you go, right there. I see that.
We're gonna break that decade-long streak to Bethune, get into the playoffs, and then give everybody some things to think about as they try to determine who the Black College National Champion is this year.
Which is it's a beautiful thing to look at it and all the debate that goes into it. And we're going to get back to some of those debates on how we figure out who is 1 and through 10 and all of that. But I want
to. Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
While we're on that subject?
Sure.
Okay. Assuming FAMU gets into the playoffs, how many games will FAMU have to win before you elevate them over the Celebration Bowl winner, whoever the Celebration Bowl winner is? Especially if it's a SWAC team.
Yeah, I would say probably at least if you make it to postseason play, I'd say 2 or 1, and the second one, how you play. Like if it was the last second loss or close, I'd say you make them national champions. Especially too, we'll get to the polls where they are in that top 5 or whatever the case may be. We'll get to the polls. If they're in that realm, why not? Like they win the home. We know we already know that Bowie and Albany's got a home game coming up from the mid-major side. But if FAM, wins 1 game and comes close to 2 or wins 2, to me, they champions. At least at that level. That's my personal opinion. But
that's how you will vote.
Right. That's exactly how. If you do that and you've been like in the top 5 or so for most of the year. Remember, they only lost by a point to Prime and those guys. So, I mean, there's a lot you could look at that body of work. I would say in their particular case, in this particular situation, that I would give them the top vote in terms of the best football team at that level. But we'll get into that. I do want to talk about, speaking of the SWAC. It's never a good thing, and never a good thing to see anybody lose their job. We certainly don't want to see that. But Broderick Fobbs, who's had a lot of success at other programs, as you know, out after 8 seasons at Grambling State. And it's 2 things questions I have for you, AD. The first thing, why before this game they coming up, this big game that they play every year, number 1, the Classic, and then number 2, if you look at his record and you look at his resume, was it warranted for him to lose his job?
Why now? Let's start with that one.
Okay.
Somewhere there was a conversation after Saturday's game. Whether Broderick Fobbs initiated the conversation or the new athletic director initiated the conversation, there was a conversation. And probably the results of that conversation were the way things are going right now, we're probably going to move in a new direction. So, with that being said, somebody in the room, we don't know which side it was, said, why delay the inevitable? If I'm not going to be here, Roger Fobbs is probably thinking, if I'm not going to be here after the Bayou next week, let's go ahead and buy me out now.
Mm.
From an athletic director side, okay, now this gives me, it's only a week, but this gives me a week up of the competition to go ahead and to find a coach. Because what's coming up in December? Early signing period.
Right.
Now, most HBCUs don't get any players in early signing period. But what happens is, based on that early signing period, players start going towards the portal. Now, you need to have a coach in place so that you go pluck those players out the portal and still keep your high school commits or go out and get high school commits that this coach may have relationships with. So it makes sense, in that sense of it. Same reason Alabama State went ahead and made the move 3 weeks ago. Same thing, to go ahead and get a leg up on the competition to try to get to stay ahead in the recruiting game. So that's why that move was made now. And I don't know if you saw inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Dr. Cavill's show, and also on the Sports Wrap, I asked the question. We played the game called Either, Neither, or Both. And the game was with Jason Rollins and Broderick Fobbs coach in the Bayou Classic. That was the initial question on Cavill's show. Then on our show, we changed the question to, will they make it to the SWAC championship game? Both, either, neither, or both. Well, we got the answer less than a week later after we asked the question on the show.
And it's, I guess what my concern is that are we going down the path of Broderick Fobbs, who again has had some success. We've known him in terms of having some success in the past at other programs. Are we going down the path where programs are looking at moving in a direction of splash coaches, or it was just a matter of wins and losses in this specific case with Coach Fobbs?
You have to look at the Coach Prime effect. You have to look at the Eddie George effect.
Right.
We know those two coaches in particular have come into HBCU football and added a fresh breath of life into HBCU football. More eyes are on HBCU football now. For those two guys specifically. Now, you and I both know there are a lot of great coaches in HBCU football, a lot of coaches who have cut their teeth. And there's a whole nother conversation about whether it's fair that a Deion Sanders or Eddie George come in off the street without cutting their teeth and get these opportunities. Totally different conversation for another day. We're not going to have that conversation right now.
Okay.
But the fact that all this attention is on HBCU football, it forces people to do things they normally would not do. The G alumni, the Grambling alumni, it's like, hey, we need us one of those too. Talking about a Deion Sanders or Eddie George or something like that. They're saying they need one too. So the alumni is excited. Obviously, someone is willing to buy Fobbs out because HBCUs don't like buyouts. We're not paying two coaches.
Right.
We're not paying you not to work.
So that's pretty significant.
We're not going to pay you not to work, though.
AD, that's significant if they buy him out. Even before the Classic, something is going on behind that. Because like you said, we ain't trying to pay two people. So if they're going to buy him out and buy him out before the Classic, it's got to be some more smoke to that fire.
Right. Also, keep in mind, Grambling has a new athletic director.
Right.
So, obviously, the president and the athletic director does not make this decision by himself. Let's be real. He has to have the support of the president, the administration, the board of whatever you want to call them, the boosters. There has to be multiple people on board with this decision. But whenever you see a new athletic director, these are the type of things that happen. These people hired him as an athletic director to make these decisions and to guide that university in making these decisions. There are a couple other schools out there that you really need to keep your eye on. One of those in particular is Bethune-Cookman. So, Bethune-Cookman, brand new athletic director, less than a year on the job. Will Bethune be the next school to do that? So those are some of the things that you have to look out for in these. Does his resume warrant it? The man has won a national championship. The man has won SWAC championships. Yes, last two seasons have been terrible for Grambling. There's no other way to put it. The last two seasons were not of Grambling standards. But let's go back to 2018. They were in contention in 2018. 2019, excuse me. You lose these years with all this COVID stuff going on. They were in contention in 2019. They were in contention in 2018. So, but the recruiting has not been there for Grambling. Now, is that something he could have fixed? Probably. But they didn't give him opportunities. They felt it was best to get a new and think about this. Broderick Fobbs is a Grambling man. So if I'm the next coach in line, dang, they did that to one of their own? To who played for Eddie Robinson?
And that's the point too, AD. When you look at this, not only that's his alma mater and they let him go, but the broader question, I don't want to beleaguer this, but the broader question to you is when or not when, but are HBCUs better suited than giving some resume passes to some of their coaches? We see it at PWIs. We see it in the NFL. There ain't a lot of us coaching anyway. So, guys get a pass. They had a bad year. I mean, look at South Carolina State, which we'll talk about. Buddy Pugh, come on. He's had some down years, but they stay with him. And guess what? He's back in the Celebration Bowl and all of that. So are they giving too less of a time for these coaches who have resumes like a Broderick Fobbs, who, like you said, won a national championship, has been successful in places, was successful at Grambling State, the down years, like you said, the last 2 years? Are we cutting them too short at HBCUs?
And it's hard to answer, but you have to look at something in the culture. And we know Grambling has been through it. With some stuff non-athletic related that has affected them on the athletic field. Hey, remember a few years ago, Grambling was having issues with transportation and practice facilities and stuff like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Broderick Fobbs was the coach doing all of that. So he's gone through the wars with Grambling. And they have not rewarded him by staying with him through his downtime. But when you're the man at the top of the hill, you can make those decisions. You can get rid of it. And keep this in mind. There's only one person who's going to have to answer to this coaching decision, no matter who made the call to let Favre go. And that's the athletic director, because he is the face of the athletic program. It could have been the president say, we got to let him go. It could have been a board of trustees person. It could have been a booster who put the pressure on. But what it is, the athletic director is the one who has to face that decision in public.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just the final part of that is that it's got to be something else. I don't know that has to do with it, because you brought up a few things. Finances. HBCUs are not trying to pay two coaches. Number one. Number two, you brought up Grambling State's issues with traveling expenses. So money is definitely got to be at the forefront. Yet they let him go. So, and they're paying him. So it's my conspiracy hat is on. Is like something else is there. I mean, I know when the AD is like in radio, in radio, like if they lock the doors at a radio station, that means new management's coming in and somebody's gonna lose their job. We know that in radio, but and I know when the new AD comes in, he wants his guy or her guy, whatever the case may be. But it just seems like they're dumping a lot of money out the window to get rid of this guy, and then to get rid of him right before the Classic. At least let him finish it out. It just seems kind of strange to me.
And let's be real. Broderick Fowles will land on his feet.
Right.
He will land somewhere. He may wind up as a offensive coordinator at a larger school. Who knows? Defensive coordinator, something. Broderick Fowles will land on his feet. Don't worry about that.
You're just joining us for Talking with AD Drew, of course, here on the Batchelor News Radio Show, WCOM in Chapel Hill, our sister station there. You can watch the show on YouTube at LA Batchelor, Big Mind Entertainment on Fire Stick, and listen to it at the BatchelorNews.airtime.pro. Mentioned Buddy Pugh and Buddy Ball had worked. Of course, they lost, but because of Norfolk State losing to Delaware State, which we'll get to, they're in the Celebration Bowl. Is it, better, do teams have the option, just for our audience, to opt out of the bowl if they're in contention to play in postseason, or do they? Okay, all right.
They are contractually obligated. The top team in the SWAC and the BIAC are contractually obligated to play in the Celebration Bowl. If you think about it, that's why some of those other postseason bowls that we have, you remember the Heritage Bowl and the Pioneer Bowl and whatever other bowls that we've had in the past. That's why those did not work, because the top teams were not obligated to play in the game. You would have a conference winner against a number 4 from some other conference playing each other. That was the problem with some of those older bowls. So, yes, they are contractually obligated to participate in the Celebration Bowl.
But here's the thing.
Everybody else, such as a FAMU, is not obligated because they would not be the SWAC champion.
Here's the thing, though. When you think about it, AD, you look at the basketball. You have the big dance. What is it, 60 whatever teams now that is? I don't even know.
I think it's 70 now, something like that.
70,
70, whatever.
So you got them. They get the playing games. The NBA kind of did that now. And then you have the teams that don't make it. The NIT, the WNIT, the other, tournaments. Of course, D2 has their tournament as well, and some other tournaments. Should HBCUs look at developing or trying to come up with that type of scenario? Because right now, at least at the major level, got the Celebration Bowl or the playoffs. Nothing in between. You got the Celebration Bowl, or you're gonna make it, or your season's over. So should they look at having some other postseason tournament, going maybe not going back to some of the other bowls, but having some kind of conforming with some other tournament where they can get in and get more experience? Because again, as you know, AD, you play ball, like the underclassmen. The more they play, more experience they get. The longer the season goes on, next year they got more under their belt, and then who knows what happens. So should they look at trying to develop something like that?
At minimum, we should have a Division II equivalent of the Celebration Bowl.
Right.
Minimum. Could be played in Atlanta the same weekend. One could be Friday, one could be Saturday, one could be Saturday, one could be Sunday, however you decide to do it. But at minimum, we should have a Division II equivalent of the Celebration Bowl.
And I know that to me, and you can correct me, you got the majors and mid majors, and to me, in a lot of cases, not all, but the difference between, say, Norfolk State and St. Aug is scholarships. They
Pretty
might
much.
have A2 guys and whatever, and they can play the game. They got, sometimes they got big guys. I mean, you look at Bowie State and Fayetteville State, all those big guys. A lot of those guys can play at the major level, right? So to me, it just seems that it's more about scholarships and depth than anything else.
Here's what it comes down to. Bowie's number ones can play with the Norfolk's number ones. Norfolk wins the games because Norfolk's twos are better than Bowie's twos because of those scholarships that you're talking about. That's the difference between these schools, is the depth because of the number of scholarships. So same thing when you go from Division II to NAIA. A Langston's ones can play with a top Division II team, whoever you may think of. Albany State's ones. We'll just use Albany State. Albany State's twos will be better than Langston's twos because of those said scholarship differences. So that's where it comes. Most teams' ones are on a comparable level. Now, we're not talking about going out and playing Alabama or Georgia or, even a Wake Forest. Their ones are better than a Norfolk's ones because of the name. But those ones could really compete with those. It's the twos and the threes where they get us at because of those scholarships.
AD, before we go back to top 10 real quick, assess college basketball and some of the teams. I mean, Howard, they lost, but they competed with Villanova. They shot the ball very well. And when you look at some of the teams, some of the programs that have been doing that, we call those quote unquote money games, they've been competing, and we've seen this slide. We've seen this trend go over the last 5-10 years. I mean, you look at Coach Moulton and at Central and what he's done, beating NC State, making a tournament almost every year, and all of that stuff. We've seen Hampton women do it. We've seen a Texas Southern play well in the tournament. So assess where we are now before we kind of get into some of the top tens in basketball after the first of the year. How well these teams are playing and competing. I mean, a 10-point loss to a Villanova or somebody like that, if you're a Hampton or whatever, or a Howard, I mean, that's a win. That's a win for recruiting and nothing else.
Yeah. Have you paid attention to the women's basketball?
Absolutely.
Did you see what Jackson State beat Miami?
Yes. That's the other one.
So it's even more on the women's side we're competing than on the men's side. And it's interesting. On the men's side, you can kind of see it because you play a lot of these schools where you got one and dones versus 3, 4, 5-year players at these HBCUs. It's interesting on the women's side because even at the Division I level, those young ladies tend to stay for their career. 3, 4, 5, 5 years. So now maybe this year, because last year of the COVID year, which didn't count, maybe a lot of those Division I players just went on ahead and got their degree and left. Where maybe some of our HBCU players took advantage of the extra year and maybe working on a second degree, a master's degree, or a second bachelor's, or something along those lines, and stay in school. Why they stay in school? Maybe because they enjoyed their experience in school a little bit more than those other ones. Or maybe because the economy sucked, there wasn't no jobs out there. So, hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. I went back out when the economy sucked once before. I went back to school.
Look,
and
man,
waited it out.
You know,
So
we was doing oodles and noodles in school, so you know it was tight.
Yes.
And I was off campus down the road, and still, trying to make ends meet. So yeah, but I think the interesting part for the women's side, because when I watch and cover both, the men are more up and down, jumping high, 3-pointers, taking nothing away from them. The women's game is a lot of pick and roll, pick and pop.
It's fundamental.
And roll. Right. So, but you got, South Carolina, and I love her, UConn, Stanford. And so it's top happy. So I'm more surprised that the upsets are coming on the women's side than it is on the men's side.
But I want you to think about it. You've got probably 5 elite women's programs.
Right.
And you just named them. Even on the women's program, from 5 to 10, if you got number 1 plays number 6, that's a 30-point ball game.
That's true. I ain't think about
that. There's not that parity. You've got your elites, you've got your UConns, you've got your South Carolinas, you've got your you've got your Stanfords and
Baylor,
and your Notre Dames and teams
Baylor.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got everybody else. Everybody else is really on the same level on that D1.
That second tier.
You got your mid majors such as the Jackson State, Alabama State, places like that. A Howard, and they get some of those players who were at some of those other schools to transfer in. All it takes is 1 or 2. Think about basketball. It's a lot easier to compete. Why? You only got 5 on the court at a time.
Right.
You give me 3 elite, I'm gonna compete with you on both nights in basketball. I don't even want 5 elite. I need 3 as a role players.
I mean, all you from the women's side, you got to do a look at Shaw, what Coach Curtis did, and Hampton with David Six, and see your point.
Give me a ball handler, give me a shooter, give me a post player, give me 5 role players, 8-man rotation. I'll beat you.
It's a good point. I know when it gets to the Final Four, you get some things and some upsets, but you're right. Like you might have that 5 or 6 elite, and then everything second tier, and then everybody is like right there. To your point of that. All right, let's go to the majors. You're wearing your Rattler shirt, and they made the case, and they certainly made the case of making the postseason. Talk about scenarios in the postseason. I know that Prairie View came up short in that game, but the postseason, and then break down the top 10, because I thought the top 10 kind of, for me in my voting, kind of stayed the same.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is Prairie View lost.
Right.
So now, let's be real. Before I even reveal it, there is a unanimous number 1, and we all know who that unanimous number 1 is. Before we even say it, because Prairie View lost. Prairie View and Jackson State have been splitting votes ever since we've been voting in this poll, at least for the last 6-8 weeks,
8 weeks
they've been
at
splitting
least.
votes on
Yeah.
the major side.
Yep.
Now Jackson State got all the votes. All right, so we gonna end that drama. The question is 2 through 10. All right, now something I want to think about. You talk about postseason scenarios. Let's start with Florida A&M. Florida A&M beats Bethune. Now, hopefully they beat Bethune by more than one score and get some style points. But Florida A&M in the top 25 now. They beat Bethune. They should be in. I'll go ahead and put them in. But I need to watch myself because I got caught last week. I put Savannah State in too, and look what happened. I got to wipe the egg off my face on that one. All right. So FAMU should be in with the win over Bethune, especially if it's a decisive win. If double digits, FAM gets in because they in theory the committee's gonna look like they should dominate a 2-win Bethune-Cookman. But it is a rival game, so we're gonna give them that. Now we have coined this new. We came up with the hashtag Protect Your Homecoming during homecoming season at the Black College Sports Network. We have now come up with a new hashtag that I'm going to ask you to carry out for the remainder of the season. It's hashtag BAC-ish. BAC as in the conference, ISH. Why did we come up with
that's for teams who used to be in there? Is that what that is?
Let me explain to you why we came up with the hashtag BAC-ish. All right. South Carolina State will represent the BAC in the Celebration Bowl. Overdone with, we know that, right? South Carolina State is not, as of yet, the BAC champion. Why are they not the BAC champion? Because North Carolina Central is one game behind them. South Carolina State, if they lose to Norfolk State on Saturday and North Carolina Central wins, BAC loves co-champions. You get a ring. You get a ring. Everybody get a ring. So they will be co-champions in the BAC. Point number one. But they will get to represent the BAC in the Celebration Bowl. Why do I bring up the fact of South Carolina State losing? Because it really doesn't matter. What is South Carolina State's current record right now? Do you know?
Not off in front of me, I don't.
South Carolina State is 5-5. North Carolina Central is also 5-5. I want you to sit and think about this. South Carolina State can lose Saturday, represent the BAC in the Celebration Bowl with a 5-6 record. I want you to
think about that. Think about that too. That speaks to something you talked about. Well, we have 10 teams with above 500 records and that kind of thing. And then going back to what I said, like maybe we need to create something else.
Just go with 5.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we go with 5 at the Black College Sports Network. I'm just being honest with you. Wait, I've got to take this a little bit further before I let you comment on this by hashtag BAC-ish. Now I told you South Carolina State can represent the BAC in the Celebration Bowl at 5-6, correct? They will.
Yep.
The team that they will be tied with in the BAC will actually have a better record than them, but cannot represent the BAC in the Celebration Bowl. If North Carolina Central wins against Delaware State on Saturday, they will be 6-5 and above 500, but not be able to go to the Celebration Bowl. Hashtag BAC-ish. BAC-ish. Only in the BAC can that happen.
That's almost like AD that it's a reason why they need to shut that conference down. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I mean, this whole co-champion thing's been going on. They got what 6 teams left, and this type of scenario you're talking about, it doesn't look like quality in terms of wins and anything.
It, it,
And
it
what if South Carolina State gets embarrassed in the Celebration Bowl? Then that's a
well,
whole nother conversation.
as far as ESPN concerned, South Carolina State is the best alternative for the Celebration Bowl because South Carolina State would be the biggest draw in the Celebration Bowl as far as fans go.
Wow.
Think about it. They're the closest team in the BAC to Atlanta. Less than 4 hours away. Actually, about 3 hours away, if I remember correctly. Orangeburg's about 3 hours from Atlanta. For travel purposes, perfect scenario. Switch it back over to the SWAC. You remember back in July, August, I told you Valley will be relevant.
You sure did. Yep, you did.
This is how relevant Valley is. Valley plays Prairie View next week. Valley has a bye this week. They play Prairie View next week to end the SWAC season, the day before the Bayou Classic. Prairie View A&M has the unfortunate thing, and I know Prairie View could not have thought they were going to be in contention for the SWAC West Championship when they scheduled this game against Texas A&M on Saturday. They've got a check game in week 11. When you have a SWAC championship to play for in week 12 because you could not take care of business in week 10 against Alcorn. If Alcorn upsets Jackson State on Saturday, we know Prairie View is probably going to lose to the other A&M in Texas, be it Texas A&M. But they play Valley, a very good Valley team. Think about it. Valley's only been blown out one time, and that was to Alabama A&M. Valley has competed in every other game. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I've been saying that Valley. I was hoping the Valley would pick it up. I thought that they would be the sleeper anyway.
Right. So you're going to play a very good Valley team. Valley coming off a bye, and you're going to get Valley after playing the FBS team on a short week. Watch out, Prairie View. Valley could beat Prairie View next week. Just give you some food for thought.
That's just crazy.
All right, let's get to this top 10. We're going to do it to Major first.
Okay.
Receiving votes, Delaware State. Coming in at number 10, 11 points, Tennessee State. Coming in at number 9, 27 points, North Carolina Central. Coming in at number 8, 33 points, North Carolina A&T. Coming in at number 7, 35 points, South Carolina State. Coming in at 6, 43 points, Norfolk State. Coming in at number 5, 55 points, Alcorn State. At number 4, back in the top 5, Alabama A&M with 64 points. Coming in at number 3, 84 points, Prairie View A&M. Coming in at number 2, where is it at? You see it on the shirt right there, Florida. I can't get the shirt turned around right there on the sleeve. We'll just put it right there. Coming in at number 2 with 99 points, Florida A&M. And Florida A&M was the unanimous number 2 team. Everyone voted Florida A&M number 2. Why? Because everyone voted Jackson State number 1. Jackson State received every first place vote.
Real quick, AD. A couple of things you can address. A&T again wouldn't have been in my top 10, although they won. I would have put Delaware State at 10. Norfolk State, if they didn't lose, somehow Delaware State would have been 3 or 2. And again, I just didn't see what people saw with Alabama A&M this year.
But they've righted the ship. Yeah, they had that mid-season hiccup. But you think about it, Alabama A&M has played great over these last 3 games.
They have, but
They 6-3. They put the
look,
first three were great, the middle three sucked, and the last three were great.
right,
The
but
middle three is what cost you.
they've struggled against teams they shouldn't struggle against. And that's been
Well,
their MO. That's something that you said when they were going through the struggle. Like
right.
this is their MO. They always lose to teams they shouldn't lose to, and then somehow whatever they end up with 6 or 7 wins or whatever. But I just them and A&T, I just don't. Central with the big win, I get it. I would have had Delaware State at 10 because of the big win. Norfolk State was just blowing through people. That's a big win for Delaware State. I'd have had them at 10. But again, I was just getting your thoughts on those.
Well, here's the thing. And I see the results before anybody because I tabulate the votes. I just named you 11 teams, LA. Only 11 teams received votes. Some of these people, you wind up having to vote for some of these teams by default. Tennessee State loses the 2 in a row.
Right.
Central. Delaware State. Central, Delaware State, Tennessee State, A&T.
I even had Southern in there. I even had Southern in there.
You can throw all 5 of those in a bowl, pull out a hat, pull a name out of hat, and can't be wrong with voting any of them 6 through 10.
Yeah, I would have even had Southern in there. Going to the mid majors, I mean the two rows to the top. In Bowie taking care of business, Albany State. They both have home games. What's the scenarios now before you get to the top 10 in terms of is it just those two teams or I know Savannah State's out. They had the longest way to try to get in anyway. But what do you see at the mid major level?
Well, let's talk about Savannah State. Let's go back to 2019. Virginia State. Similar situation.
Yeah.
Virginia State was actually sitting at number 6 in 2019.
Right.
Did not make the playoffs. Savannah State had everything happen that they need to have happen and did not make the playoffs. Why is that? Well, number one, our Division IIs have got to create a way to let these teams who are not in the championship game, but in contention for a playoff berth, play week 11 so that they could get some extra look, some style points. They're not forgotten about. And I'm afraid that's what happened to Virginia State in 2019 and Savannah State this year. Now, did it help that Savannah State was 0-2 against regionally ranked teams and were not competitive in those 2 games? No, it did not help. Lenore Ryan was 1-1. And honestly, when you looked at the metrics, that was the only metric where Lenore Ryan was better than Savannah State. All other metrics, they were either neck and neck, even, or Savannah State was slightly ahead. But that record against above 500, rated teams, Lenore Ryan, 1-1. Savannah State was 0-2. Lenore Ryan above teams above 500 was 3-1. Savannah State was 2-2. Those were the differences. That's why Savannah State did not get in. Now, Savannah State, if you do a SIAC CIAA Week 11 crossover, where you take the top-rated team that's not in the championship game against the top-rated team in the SIAC that's not in the championship game, you put Savannah State against a Union or a Shaw. Use it this year, based on this year. Would have been Shaw, except for that last week's loss to St. Aug. So you probably would have leaned more towards a Union, based on that. Now, if you take what I've also said is, And that would have been good for both of those teams to try to get that extra bump, a CIAA and an SACT. And it's going to fluctuate from year to year who really is going to benefit from that bump. And if you did what I call the SIAC consolation game, take the next best in the East versus the next best in the West. Well, that would have been Savannah State, Kentucky State, except Kentucky State was contractually obligated to play in another game that they had scheduled week 11. So you take them and put them against Lane. Lane, who was right behind Kentucky State in the regional ratings. So that would have been a good game for style points for Savannah State. We got to think outside the box so that we could get in. It makes no sense that either the SAC or the GSC always get 3 in. One gets 3, the other one is 2.
Yeah.
Every year.
And
a couple of years, they've gotten 3 and 3, and all we've gotten was either SIAC or the CIAA. There has been some years like that.
And I've seen West Virginia State get in over some other people too at that whole scenario. So are you saying though, real quick, are you saying if Savannah State had style points and losing by a touchdown or 3 points in those 2-2 losses, that they would have had a better chance to get in?
Well, the committee does not look at point differential, but let's be real. These people are human. Valdosta beat them by 50, if I remember correctly. And Savannah, Albany beat them by 40. So somewhere close to that. So those were not competitive games for Savannah State. You don't look at the point differential, but it's back here. You remember those. And that's why they have to go out, and when you play outside competition, and who did they beat? Livingstone during the season? That was just
and Livingstone, of course. What they had, 3 wins or whatever they had.
Yeah. They beat Livingstone or Erskine.
Right.
So those were not quality, what you call a quality victory. They were victories you're supposed to get them, but those weren't quality victories. Now, do you know they weren't going to be quality victories when you went out of schedule? Probably one of the two you did. You know Savannah was going to beat Livingstone.
But the only thing is, we get to the top 10 because I know you got to go. FAMU gets credit for losing by a point to the number 1 team in our poll. If Savannah State had lost by a point to Valdosta, they don't get the same credit. Is it a different level thing?
FCS Division II. FCS rates things different than Division II. That's what the big thing is. And
it should be universal though, AD. Like so when I do my voting, when you send that poll over, I'm looking at head to head. I'm looking at wins and losses. I'm looking at strength of schedule, probably in that order.
Right.
So it like I think I had mentioned to you, Michigan State beat Michigan. Why is Michigan ahead of Michigan State? So if Prairie View lost to, let's say, Norfolk State, and then Prairie View is ahead of Norfolk State, why? Norfolk State beat them. So I just, and then you look at style points. You do want to look at that. So if Savannah State lost by 40 to one team, 50 other team, but if they say lost by 1 to Valdosta and 2 to Albany, and FAM lost by a point to the top team in our poll, then it should be consistent in that regard. Right, should.
That's right. You and I.
Right.
That's not everyone.
Right. And that's how I look at it. When you send it that, I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at scores, I'm looking at all that stuff, and then I'm making my decisions, and then I make my choices there.
Especially when you got 2 teams right there, neck and neck. Yes, I'm looking at strength of schedule.
Right.
I got 2 teams. I can vote either one of them number 5. Who's got the better strength of schedule?
Well, I mean, that's how we.
That's what I'm. Wait a minute. Is there a head-to-head between those two? If there's not a head-to-head between those two, Then I'm looking at who's played the tougher competition, their strength of schedule. All right, the one who's played the tougher schedule, I'm going to give them the bump. That one's going to be 5. The other one's going to be 6. That's just how I look at it. If they don't have a head-to-head.
So if they don't have, but if they have a head-to-head, you go head-to-head first, right? Because I
If
know
if the two team, if I rate the two teams are equal, yes, I would go. I would look at their head-to-head first. If I think they're two. Now, just because you beat a team and the other team is 7-1 and you 4-4, I don't care what their head-to-head is. I'm still got to go with their 7-1 team.
You just went where I was gonna go,
because if both of you all are 6-2, and one of your 6 is against that other team, and that's one of their 2, I gotta put you ahead of them.
Yeah. That's where I was gonna go, because if Prairie View beat Jackson State, and Prairie View, that was their only win, and Jackson State's got 7 wins, I can't compare the two. I gotta go.
I cannot put Bethune ahead of Alcorn. How about that? Even though Bethune has the head-to-head,
right?
I cannot put Bethune ahead of Alcorn.
Speaking of that, I did get a email real quick that said that how do you compare? How do not compare? I'm sorry. Let me read back, and it says, how do you say that if FAM beats Bethune that they should be in the playoffs, considering Bethune has 2 wins? They have 3 wins or 2 wins. I'm not sure.
Bethune has 2 wins.
Right. So the person email is saying that they only have 2 wins. How do you compare? How do you say that's a quality win? I guess they're saying
it's not that it's a quality win. Okay. It's the fact that FAMU has taken care of business. Okay. A victory against Bethune will give Florida A&M a 9-1 record in FCS. That only one is against Jackson State by 1 point. That's why I say they are in. When you compare, there will not be too many teams in FCS with a better record in FCS than 9-1. You throw out the FBS loss to South Florida out. You just look at FCS 9-1. We're actually 8-1 because you would also throw out the win against Fort Valley. They've got an 8-1 FCS record. There aren't too many teams ahead of them with the better record. Even better, there won't be too many teams behind them who will be able to bump them out. All Florida A&M has to win. It's not that Bethune is a quality win. Bethune is a win. You cannot afford to lose it. If another loss, they're done.
So Jeremy, who apparently AD doesn't understand understand HBCU football, says, then if your scenario's right, then why is Cincinnati struggling to be in the college football series? He says because they only have that win against Notre Dame. So
right. Look, that's a whole different level of financing that's driven by that 4-letter network. That's why Cincinnati is not in. I don't report on the big boys, but I do follow the big boys. The matchup that they want to see, Cincinnati is not a name brand. What major TV market is there in Cincinnati that they're going to count on?
They're looking for the big market, right?
University of Georgia has Atlanta, top 20 market in the nation. University of Alabama has that national name. Notre Dame has that national name. Cincinnati is a regional name. That's why they don't want Cincinnati in the playoffs. Although Cincinnati, in my opinion, deserves to be there. And Cincinnati is just like FAMU right now. They've beaten the teams on their schedule like they're supposed to. Give Cincinnati a shot. That's all I'm saying. Now, Cincinnati may get in there and get their butt kicked by 30, but you got to let them in.
But you got to let them in, and that's the whole thing with fam, and that's why I said this particular person doesn't understand how that works, and he must be some big time whatever, because again, if you beat who's in front of you, that's it. That's it. You beat, if it's LA High, you just beat LA High by 50 points or 10 points. You beat who's in front of you. If AD College was there, you beat AD College, and you keep it moving.
I'm gonna give you a true story.
Sure.
When I was coaching AAU basketball, we entered this tournament. It was in Atlanta. We were supposed to be in the 7th grade bracket. That's what I was coaching young people.
Right.
We were coming from Alabama into Georgia. We had one of the top 7th grade teams in Alabama. So we decided to play in the tournament in Georgia. The 7th grade division didn't make, and they didn't tell me this. So they decided to put us in the 6th grade division.
Oh, wow.
I told that man when I found out we was in the 6th grade division, I'm like, please move us up to the 8th grade division.
Right.
He's like, nah, we don't want that. I was like, trust me, you don't know this team that I have. You do not want to put me in that 6th grade division. I begged him. He put me in the 6th grade division. I was up on somebody by 40 at halftime because I told them, I was like, they got on the different color jersey than us. We gonna play. And when I say we was up by 40, we were not trying to embarrass them.
Wow.
We really were not trying to embarrass them, but we were up over by 40 at halftime. And I was like, man, please, you gonna make me go out and play the second half? I mean, I won't. You can give me some money back. I don't care, but I don't want to embarrass this other team and these kids' ego like this. Not at 13, 14 years old. But if you put them on the court with me, I have no choice but to spank them, because I would expect them to do that to me. Anyway, let's get to the top 10, man.
Exactly, and the scenarios that you had with Bowie, Albany State, Savannah, Fayetteville State, and Miles. I'll talk about that and then get into your top 10, sir.
Well, if you go through the article, I pretty much hit it on the head with the article, except for Lenore Ryan getting in there. And I kind of mentioned that Lenore Ryan could get in. I thought Savannah State's resume was strong enough, but I did mention it that Savannah State needed to play an extra game. They did not. Henceforth, I think that's the reason Savannah State did not get in. Fayetteville State, you had your destiny in your own hand, did not take care of it. Miles had your destiny in your own hand.
That's right.
Did not take care of it. And let's give credit to Albany State and Bowie. They handled their business. They were the better team. They played like the better teams. So shouts out to them. Both of them have home games. I will be at the Albany State game this Saturday, by the way.
And I'll be at the Bowie State too. So.
Yeah. Oh, good. Dude. Hey, you need to come on the show Sunday night. We need to talk, man. You need to come on the Sports Wrap Sunday night. We need to get a report from Bowie, Maryland from you, man.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I will be at the Albany State game Saturday. The only thing that I hate, and I did tell you Albany State was going to drop to number 4. If you go back and read that article, I said Albany State would drop to 4. They did. The only thing I hate about it, it's a good, bad thing. I would have loved to have seen Bowie Albany play in the second round. That's the bad thing. The good thing is if they play, it's for the regional championship, and we know that means we know we're going to get one of our schools to the Final Four. Right. So that's the good of it. I need both of them to get to the regional championship. Bowie will be at home the first 2 rounds. Albany only guaranteed to be at home. Will be at home this first round. If they win, they will be on the road the second time. They get Valdosta State in round 2. And Coach Giordini will tell you, they want Valdosta State again. And if you go back and listen to our interview on BCSN Sports Wrap, available on Facebook and YouTube, we have the interview with them. They want them again. There was about an hour and a half lightning delay in the first game that really took the momentum away from Albany State. The score was pretty much 14-3 until a late garbage time touchdown that made it 21-3. Albany State can play with Valdosta State.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they want them back round 2. If that should happen, I plan to be 45 minutes the other direction in Valdosta, Georgia for round 2. I will be there. Albany State is 45 minutes from my house. I will ride Albany State out in this playoff run. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you gonna ride Bowie State out. So maybe we'll do a show together. Hopefully we can do a show together when they play each other.
Yeah. And getting to your top 10, I would love to see them get as deep as they can and then play each other.
That's why I said.
Like you're saying. Right.
And then we won't have to worry about voting on who's the national champion because they'll take care of it on the field.
Right. So your top 10, again, Langston and all of those things in those situations, top 10 changes. I didn't really see much of changes with Fayetteville State and Miles losing. And your thoughts?
The question was, for me, where do you put Miles? Because when you could think about Miles, they had those first 2 games where they played FCS schools. Those first 2 check games. Miles played 5 quarterbacks this year. So, yeah. But they were in the SIAC championship game. Where did you place Miles? That's what was interesting to see what people thought about Miles. And then, next question is, where did you play Savannah? Where did people play Savannah State? Savannah State having the off weekend. Fayetteville State, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result because they went into Virginia, Salem, Virginia again against Bowie State and got the same result. So those are the 2 things that were interesting when I was really tallying the votes to see where our people's heads were. Where did you put Miles at? Where all 3 of those? Where did you put Fayetteville, Savannah, and Miles? That's what was interesting. So here we go. Receiving votes, West Virginia State. Coming in at number 10, Lane, 12 points. Coming in at number 9, Shaw, 29 points. Coming in at 8, Virginia Union, 33 points. Coming in at dropping all the way from number 1 at one time to number 7, Langston, after 3 losses in a row, 44 points. Number 6, Kentucky State, 40. Well, let me back up. Tied at number 5 with 45 points each. Miles and Kentucky State both received 45 points.
And I know why. Because I think that they had the scenario that it could have been a 3-way tie in that division to face Albany State. So I think that was part of the reason why they have the higher echelon voting.
Let me ask you this. The fact that Kentucky State played that extra game, did that you think that might have influenced some people too?
I don't do the extra game thing. For me,
I didn't say you. So, do you think that influenced some of our voters? Maybe Savannah State because if they'd have lost that extra game, we'd have dropped them down.
Yeah. I mean, that might have been the issue, but then that goes to, like I said, when we're doing MVPs, who's the greater player, who's the best, the greater team or whatever, and you having that. So yeah, I'm sure that probably played into it.
Right. All right. So we got a tie at number 5. Number 4, Savannah State, 6 points. Number 3, Fayetteville State, 76 points. I personally think those 2 should have been flip-flop.
Yeah, but I agree.
Number 2, 93 points, Bowie State. Number 1, 97 points, Albany State. But keep in mind, Bowie State is rated higher than Albany State in the regional rankings. And you split hairs between these 2 teams. You got Bowie State, who scored, I believe, 7 defensive touchdowns on the season, if I have the number right. And you've got an Albany State with 6 shutouts. So you're splitting hairs when you're talking about these 2 teams, brother. That's why they were co-number 1s last week. So it's gonna be
So,
interesting to see how it comes out.
so last question before we let people know how they can reach you. Why are we splitting hairs? I mean, if Bowie wins and Albany State loses and it's tight, or the opposite, then they should they be co MVP, co champions?
What happens if they both go out in the same round? That's why I mean we splitting hairs. These two teams are that close. Now, and I hate to say this, for somebody down in the South like me, I'm probably going to lean more towards the Albany State.
Mm-hmm.
For some of our northern voters up there in the northeast, they're probably going to lean more towards a Bowie State.
Right.
We are literally splitting hairs, especially now. We're not saying one of them gets blown out and the other plays a competitive game. Both of them lose by, say, one score. Both of them, one team lose by 4, one loses by 3, or whatever the case may be. We will be splitting hairs, and you may have co-champions, because I guarantee you, unless we have an odd number of voters, if we have an even number of voters, 10, 12, 14, whatever it is, you will probably get, if we have 12 voters, you'll get 6 for Albany State, 6 for Bowie State. And we have a split champion.
So if you just for you personally, if Albany State wins by 50, wins by 20, and Bowie State loses by 3, is it a balance?
If one wins this week and one loses, it's done.
That's it.
The winner has it.
Gotcha. Okay.
If both lose this week, I've got to sit down and do some analytics.
You got some. I think you got some analytics. I think both Albany State and Bowie State will win this weekend. At least that's.
And the good thing is, as an organization, we're not voted until the Division II playoffs are done. So we'll get a 2-3 week sample of seeing what they get to do before we vote again. Hopefully we get a 2 or 3 week sample. And by the way, that one last thing that we like to vote, according to the BCSN formula, Albany State does have the tougher strength of schedule by a margin over Bowie State, which is why I personally gave Albany State my vote.
Well, I mean, that's big, because if you facing, Fayetteville State that you beat all the time, and whatever you're beating in the CIAA North or whatever you're beating, then that does play into what Albany State is doing. Before you go, AD, Black Collar Sports Network, the articles, the interviews, the information, please do let people know how they can reach out to you, sir.
Website, mybcsn.net. mybcsn.net. Please go through, read our articles. We try our best to give it down to you. And I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes we get lazy. We it's quicker for us to just get on and do a podcast and to sit down and write, but it is what it is. You can catch our podcast on that same platform on our website, mybcsn.net, or on social media at mybcsn and the number 1. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at mybcsn and the number 1. You can catch me on Twitter, BCSN Drew. That's BCSN DREW. So I love coming on here. Don't know if we're gonna be on for next week for Thanksgiving week, but if so, we'll record it early, and I'll let him distribute it when he wants to. Only reason I know on Thanksgiving, I will be in Montgomery, Alabama for the Turkey Day Classic. Go ahead and pencil that one in.
We have the turkey out stuff in and put it in, but I just appreciate your insight, man. You just bring it, and my ratings and everything is just so really good. AD, I appreciate you, man. God bless. And like I said, even if we do something before Thanksgiving, trust and believe on or after Thanksgiving, the numbers will be there, man. Thanks so much, man, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Hey, y'all, keep liking, subscribing, and sharing so he can get his ratings up, so he can get some of those big A checks. That's all I'm gonna say.
Exactly. So I can send some money to AD, right? So I can send that money. You know what I'm
There
saying?
you go. There you go.
Appreciate
you, my brother.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right.
All right. AD Drew, always good to have him on HBCU Sports Pro Media and the Black College Sports Media Network. If you miss any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to our website. That would be listening the Batchelor News airtime.pro, the THE, Batchelor, BATCHELOR News airtime.pro, so you can listen to the show. If you want to watch it, you can go to YouTube at LA, Los Angeles, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, Batchelor at YouTube, or Big Mind Entertainment on Fire Stick. And real cool, you just download Big Mind Entertainment. You can watch it there. And the other part of it, most importantly, you can go to our website and listen to the broadcast at the THE Batchelornews.airtime.pro. Enjoy. We will talk with you very, very soon.